eventually, around 2018, I started looking into developing libraries.
Okay.
And when React hooks are announced, I was so
Mm-hmm.
excited.
Yeah.
This is something I can do. I didn't like class components,
Okay. Yeah.
and I wanted to do everything in function components. And when they are announced, I'm so excited that I
Yeah.
can do something 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 interesting, something significant. So I jumped into developing open source libraries with
Okay.
React hooks, and I put a lot of my time and effort. And
Okay.
the first thing I did was creating Redux bindings,
Okay.
React Redux bindings, because there are no official hooks for Redux,
Okay. Yeah.
and not only me, but many developers tried to develop React Redux binding. Eventually, the official Redux announced their official version of hooks, so that's kind of settled.
Okay.
And then I started using. I continued my project for basically using React context. The library is called React Tract, based on proxies. And I
Oh,
also
okay.
had yeah, I also had similar libraries, and that one of them is pretty similar to Zastan. I call it Zastan,
Okay.
and yeah, I started developing Zastan. At some point, we discussed that there can be more than one state management libraries
Mm-hmm.
in our group. So I proposed to develop Jotai, which was inspired by Recoil.
Okay.
And the reason I like the idea is that it's not based on proxies. That's the reason I studied Jotai. And eventually we thought we can have one more. And that leads me to develop Virtue, which
Okay.
is proxy based.
Okay.
And so I started with the proxy based solution and I went back to the proxy solution again. But
Okay.
anyway, there were three libraries. We didn't think like all of them are like widely used,
Yeah.
but luckily, yeah, they are kind of used for production.
It's interesting because I haven't really worked with proxies directly. I mean, I've done it a little bit. I'm sure you're probably familiar with Immer.js. I like the idea of it, like of this kind of draft concept. I don't know if it's the same thing in Valshio or like maybe different wording. It seems to just propagate the changes and somehow with the proxy create the updated immutable state from what I've understood. I haven't really used Immer myself, but is that similar with how Valsio works?
I mean,
Okay.
it's kind of similar, but
Okay.
yeah, slightly different. But
Yeah.
let's put that aside.
Yeah.
And so that was the story for state management
Okay.
or global state solutions. And I have two. I set my domain for in two fields, and
Okay.
one was global state, like
Yeah.
the limitation of React context and use state. The other was data fetching,
Okay.
and so far I haven't done like anything significant like other libraries, but I made some data fetching library based on React Suspense. It's
Okay.
there are a bunch of small experimental libraries that I built. Eventually,
Yeah.
let me continue. Eventually, okay, so there's a term says data fetching, hmm, React Suspense for data fetching, and that was proposed from React a couple of years ago. But eventually, they say data fetching solution is RSC.
Okay.
So that brings me to creating a framework. I didn't it's not my intention to create like a full production framework at first. It was
Okay.
my experiment to so what's said is that now the suspense for data fetching is RSC.
Yeah.
So I like to see how it work. So that
Yeah.
that was my yeah, that was my experiment. And there are another motivation. So we have three state management libraries, and some people started to ask, how can those global state libraries be used in RSC? I didn't know because I didn't know how RSC works. I read the uh, official documentation, but that doesn't tell.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another motivation. So
Okay.
I wanted to see how those global state libraries play with React Server components. So that was
Yeah.
about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I started to experiment RSC, and eventually I released my experimental project. People started to think this is something, and they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to use it. So, and there are like no other competitors. I mean, there are Next.js, but no other React framework supports RSC.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed my mind. This is something. So I officially say this is no longer an experimental project, and our goal is to make a production level React framework.